I have a special event coming up and I want to make a new dress, which means head straight to Pinterest and start looking for ideas. I like this dress, and I think with an old t-shirt pattern and fabricating my own pieces for the skirt, I think I can make something that will work. Now I get to go pick out some fabric and pull out my stash from under my work table. I'm not quite sure what I want to do. I've got some already dyed pieces, like this beautiful piece of botanical print linen that I've had stashed away for about a year. It's gorgeous, but it's a little lightweight. And the same thing for this indigo dyed fabric. It's really beautiful, but it's too lightweight. But I have this Lithuanian linen that it's a stripe and then that heavy white, and I think that's going to work. I think that's the ticket. I'm not quite sure if I'll do anything with that botanical print, but I'll save it for later. And there's my t-shirt pattern and my old pants pattern, pocket pattern. It's got a nice cap sleeve, and that's the skirt pieces that I've made out of craft paper, and I think I'm ready to go. But this is the big exciting thing I'm going to do with this, is I'm going to get my indigo vat going again. And it's been all wrapped up all winter long. It's been here for months. And I have no idea. I haven't looked at this in months, so I'm really not sure how it's going to look. But starting off, it doesn't look too bad. I'm going to stir it up. And the color's pretty good, so that's encouraging. But I'm going to stir it up and check the pH, and we'll just see where we are and go from there. Now that I know what the pH is, it's time to work on balancing the vat. So that means I need to heat it up. And it takes a while. I want to heat it up to about 120 degrees and then start figuring out what I need to add to it to get it back working. The first thing I'm going to do is add some sugar to the vat. It started off as a fructose vat, but I don't have any of that, so I think I'm going to use honey. And this is some local honey that I have, which seems appropriate. I really like the idea of using that. And I'm going to dissolve it in some hot water, and that'll help speed up the process of raising the temperature up to get it to the sort of working temperature for making any amendments that I need. Now I'm pouring the honey and water mixture in, and I'll give it a good stir and let it rest for a bit. So you always stir clockwise and try not to introduce oxygen in, because that's what we're trying to do, is to set this up so that there's little or no oxygen in the vat, so that's called reducing the oxygen. And the sugar will eat up some of that pH and will probably lower the pH. So I probably will need to add lime to this to raise the pH back up. I want the pH to be between 10 and 11, and right now it's a little bit low. So what I need to do is add some hydrated lime. This is gardening lime, and you can get it at garden supply stores or online. But the thing about where I am in this process right now is I don't really measure. adding the honey and now adding the lime. It's all a bit of a crapshoot. I've been doing this for a while now, and so I just kind of go on intuition, which is a wonderful thing when it comes to working with indigo. I think that's one of my favorite things about indigo, is that you really can't think your way through it. You really have to let your heart lead the way. And that little cluster on top there, that's called the flower, and that's looking pretty good. That little flower is a sure sign that it's on its way to becoming a working vat, and the pH is looking pretty good, but what I need to do now is just let this rest. So I'm going to wait until the next day, until tomorrow. And right now it's time to cut out the pattern, and I'm going to do something different with this. Instead of waiting and dyeing the fabric or the dress after it's done, I'm going to dye the individual pieces. I've never done this, and I have this idea of how I'd like the dress to look. I'm thinking that it'd be interesting to have it kind of patchworky looking, just to have different panels and different colors and have it just kind of a mix of light and dark indigo. But first I've got to lay all the pattern pieces out and get everything ready to go. Of course, it really helps that I've been sewing a long time, and all of this is pretty much second nature, and I don't really worry about the hows and wherefores of laying out a pattern. I just kind of wing it, and I do all the regular things, like making sure that the things are on the straight grain of the fabric so it all hangs well, and but I don't follow all of the rules like I did when I was in junior high school. It's the next morning, and as you can see, I'm all layered up because it's kind of a chilly morning here in the mountains. And the indigo vat is heating up on my Coleman stove, and the linen, I want it to soak a while. This heavy Lithuanian linen needs to soak so that the dye will absorb evenly. And checking the pH again, and it's looking pretty good. And the clothesline awaits. That's a lot of what indigo dyeing is about, is waiting. It's later in the afternoon now, or later in the day, and it's warmed up quite a bit. And it's time to start dyeing those individual pieces. I've got my little basket, which I'll suspend the fabric in so that it doesn't touch the residue of lime and other things in the bottom of the vat that will contaminate it. And I made this little piece of metal, sort of little hook thing, so that I can suspend the basket in the pot, so that keeps it from touching all the stuff in the bottom. And I don't want to introduce any oxygen. I want to keep it as oxygen free as possible. And now it's been about 15 minutes, and it's time to take the first pieces out of the vat. I do wear gloves. It is some people see it as a badge of honor to have blue hands, but I kind of prefer gloves at this point. And taking the pieces out, again, I want to be very careful about not introducing any oxygen, and wring each piece out as carefully as possible, and no drips. And then do a real good rinse in the bucket, and as you can see, it starts going from that sort of yellow color to changing to blue, which is oxidizing. So the oxygen is coming back into the fabric now, and it's going to start turning blue. It's just this miracle of indigo. I continued to do more dips through the day, and the thing that I saw was it was just not getting as dark as what I was hoping it would be. So I left everything for that day, and then the next day I decided to add more indigo to the vat. And this is my homegrown indigo. This is, if you, I'll put links to my previous videos on extracting indigo dye and getting it down to this paste. But it's such an exciting thing to be using my own homegrown indigo to create this vat and to enrich those colors. Again, it's all intuition, and I have no idea the strength that this is going to be, but I'm winging it, which is what I love about indigo. And I've been storing this paste. I have this nice big full quart of paste that I've been keeping it in the refrigerator, so it's ready to go. I'm going to water this down a little bit just to make it easier to blend in with the rest of the vat. And give it a good shake. I'll rinse off the lid in the vat. I don't want to lose any of that glorious pigment. And pour it in. Give it another good stir, again stirring clockwise, and then get sort of a nice centrifugal motion going, and then slow it down very gently by going in the opposite direction. And as you can see, the flower is still very much present. So now I wait some more, and after waiting and dyeing the pieces again, I think I did another at least 2 more dips, probably 3. And so just remember that's like 15 to 20 minutes each dip. And the color is looking much, much better. I'm very pleased with how this is looking. So I let the pieces dry overnight, and now they're all crinkly, and I need to iron them out and get them ready to sew. I put the cloth on the ironing board because I wasn't sure, since the dye is not fixed yet, if any of that dye would work its way out onto my nice ironing board. So get everything ready for nice and pristine, and all edges all even and everything, getting things ready to sew. The next thing I need to do, this was some of the indigo fabric that I had dyed previously, and this is the lighter weight indigo, and so what I need to do now is cut bias strips, and that's what I'm going to use at the neckline and on the sleeves, just for the finishing rather than doing a hem. I really like using bias strips. I just like the way that it looks, and the finish, and it's super easy. And one thing that's happened with dyeing these pieces individually is I've got lots of raw edges and lots of strings hanging off, which will get in the way when I'm sewing. So after ironing, I needed to clean up the edges just a little bit so it'll be easier to put together. And so construction begins. You know, like I was saying before, this is me kind of winging it. You know, it's my own pattern, so there really aren't any instructions. It's just all those years of sewing that I know how to put things together. And my little budget Bernina is sounding, it's not sounding really great right now. It's running a little rough, but I think it's going to be fine to get this dress made. And this is that patchwork look that I was going for, with the blocked colors. And I'm hoping after I overdye everything that it will still show up. Now I'm closing in on finishing everything, sewing the skirt to the top of the bodice, and we'll put it all together and keep my fingers crossed that it's actually going to look like something I want to wear. Okay, getting close to the moment of truth here, turning it right side out and seeing what I've got. It still has some some finishing details to do. And okay, right now it looks like a big blue potato sack. It's really not looking quite like I wanted to. It's not hanging very well. There's just way too much fabric in the front and the back. There's just, I really like my clothes to have a little bit more definition to them. So I think I'm going to put some darts in here and take up a little bit of that extra fabric and see if I can get this to fit a little bit better. Just pinning it, I can see that that's an improvement already. And stitching it, yep, definitely an improvement. Much, much better. And now it's ready to go back into the dye vat. I'm planning on dipping it at least a couple more times. And again, this is the next day. This has taken all week. The color of the vat is good. The dress has been wet down for a good long while. I've got my little hanger ready to submerge. And this is a lot of fabric to do in that little basket. And I'm going to be real careful about not introducing oxygen and trying to get the fabric to stay down there underneath. So I put the lid on and hold it down and then come back. It'll take 20 minutes each time I dip it, and half an hour to oxidize for each dip. I really want the color to be nice and dark, so I went ahead and decided to leave it in each dip for the 20 minutes, squeezing out as much liquid as I can, no drips, as that introduces oxygen, and giving it a good rinse. When wet, it looks much darker, and even after several dips it looks pretty dark, but it's going to lighten up, especially after I do a final rinse, and that will be in a vinegar bath which will neutralize the lime and also brighten the blue up a little bit. And then I'll wash it in hot water and put it in a hot dryer. I'm also noticing that all of my color blocking is now all one solid color, but it's a beautiful shade of blue. The finished dress is gorgeous. It actually shrank a little bit, which is fine, and it fits perfectly. I am so pleased. This is my outfit with my favorite trip-in shoes, and I am just so happy. I am just over the moon. Happy, happy, happy.